Hi, everyone. Welcome to this edition of Divorce Talk. I am Jessica King. I am a certified divorce mediator, a certified divorce coach, and your group admin. I'm so excited to have you here with us today because today my guest is Melissa Schwartzman, an experienced couples counselor and divorce mediator who helps families find peaceful resolutions during divorce and co-parenting. Melissa is passionate about helping people create clearer communication and reduce the stress that comes with these life changes. Melissa, thank you so much for being here today. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and the work you do?
Absolutely. So you gave a great introduction. So I really help people really navigate separation and divorce from start to finish. So it's really important to realize that it's a stressful time and you really need to seek out help. You really are not alone in this process. So I really help people really navigate this tricky process. So mediation is really where I can help guide through the process. I think it's really important to align yourself with a lot of professionals. So as Jessica's a divorce coach, it's really good to start with a coach who can kind of help you align with what you need to know. Getting a lawyer is important to understand the legal aspects of the divorce, but a coach can really help you prepare for mediation, which is sort of my specialty, where I'm going to guide you through the areas of alimony, if you are eligible for that. If you have kids, child support, and then there's this whole area of equitable distribution with really go into the assets. So why I mentioned that up front, we're going to get into a lot of the details, but back to the relevancy of a coach, they could kind of really help prepare you for deciding kind of what's really the most important to you. Because when you get into the mediation, that's when you're really going to get into the meat of it. So meat and mediation, that kind of sounds similar.
Right, yes.
That works. Because it's important to kind of know what you want up front. Because when you get into the mediation, that's when you're going to kind of needing to do some negotiation. So what you really most want, you want to need to know so you can kind of trade off things. So that's a little bit about what it is. And we're going to get into more details as we go forward.
Yeah, that's an excellent start. So, yeah, let's get into some more details. So, there could be people watching who are unfamiliar with mediation. So, can you share what makes mediation such a valuable tool for people who are going through divorce and co-parenting?
Yeah, so I would say what makes it different from the typical process. When people getting divorced, they say, I need to go get a lawyer. So, yes, that's the way it works, and you can go through the litigation process, all the steps through. But you could kind of have a lawyer, and then you can kind of say, mediation is a great tool, which is a little bit more cost effective. It's a little bit more confidential. You can share information that's not widespread. And it's also a little bit way to really get the information out there when you could do it a little bit more amicable, right? Because
Right.
sometimes when lawyers are sitting there writing letters back and forth, things get a little bit heated up, and you're really setting a goal for both people. But the mediator's there to act in an impartial way. So they're serving both parties at the same time with a mutual goal, which, like I said, is to figure out alimony, child support if applicable, and like looking to figure out how the assets can be divided in an equitable way. Now, equitable, people sometimes think, I'm going to get 50-50 down the line. Sometimes it's not that way. Equitable, why I mentioned before, sitting down and maybe getting some guidance from a divorce coach, that's when you say, maybe I'll want something more. Sometimes the house is a big thing, right? But sometimes somebody will say, I really want the house. But then someone will say, if I get the house, then maybe I won't want somebody's portion of the 401k that existed at the time of the marriage. But I want to keep things simple today. So if I would say, why is mediation a good choice for somebody? It's a good choice if you are able to know that it's not a very high conflict divorce. And even I've mediated some of those, if you can really come to terms with what you want to do. But it could be more cost effective than just going all the way through litigation. It could be a way to have a collaborative way of getting through the divorce. It can also be a way to have a clear-cut way of having things be a little bit more confidential. And as I mentioned, I have to really underscore the dollar signs can really be a way to keep things more cost effective. I mean, I've been doing the divorce thing for a very long time, and I'm sure Jessica can attest. Sometimes people spend up to $30,000 for the divorce. And if you want to kind of have a range of what a mediation could look like, depending if there's children or no children, right? The sessions can range maybe from 4 to 6, right? If it's a little bit of a smaller scale, or maybe up to 10. But you could look maybe to spending more like the 5 to 8 to 10 kind of range rather than a 30,000. So it's a lot less, more cost effective than.
Yeah. The cost effectiveness can depend on where you live, because the price of mediation varies depending on, your state where you live. And, there is equitable distribution. Now, in my state, it's community property. So,
Good.
yeah. So all of those things, as far as cost and, how things are divided, they do vary by state. So if you are looking for a mediator, make sure you check for your state, because things cost a lot different in North Dakota than they do, say, in New York.
This is very true, but it
Yeah.
really is a big savings no
Yeah.
matter what, based on going through the trial.
Yeah, it's definitely cheaper than hiring an attorney. So divorce and co-parenting, they're really emotionally experienced, especially when you're in the start and you're trying to figure things out. So how does mediation help people manage the emotional dynamics of these situations while still finding solutions for everyone involved?
Right. So a very important part of the mediation document is a parenting plan. So again, part of mediation is really keeping things amicable, keeping things with less conflict. So part of that is figuring out what the parenting plan will look like. And that includes what the visitation schedule is going to look like, meaning how many days a week will one parent have the child, what will it look like for holidays? That's always a very big thing, right? Sometimes Easter is somebody's biggest holiday, and sometimes, believe it or not, somebody's used to being the summer is a big thing because somebody has a beach house. So everything, and again, I'll emphasize this, with divorce, everything is no one size fits all. So you never know what you're going to get with each situation. So it's important to think about that as well. But in terms of keeping things really realizing, because mediation, again, a neutral party is helping with everything. So we want to keep things easy and light and really objective. But it's important to really always say, if it's starting to veer in a different direction, children are sometimes the one who get caught in the crossfire. So we want to make sure that we're really using the lens of what is best for the children. So it's important as you're devising these plans, especially the parenting agreement, what is going to work best for the children, to maybe eliminate them going back and forth as little as possible, maintaining the stability for them as often as possible.
Yeah, those are all very great points. It's really what's in the best interest of the kids, and how can we reduce the conflict for them and our lives going forward. And yeah, I love how it really eases those burdens, those emotional burdens, having a third party to be there to create a safe space. That's kind of how I call it, right? A safe space.
Yes.
For the people. Yeah. So that's the easiest way to put it. It creates a safe space with a neutral person. Yeah, I love that. What advice would you offer for someone watching who may be wondering if mediation is the right fit for them? And what are, certain situations where mediation works particularly well, or where it wouldn't be a good fit?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's very important to kind of think, is this the right thing for me? So some of the things I've mentioned already, like sometimes if you're thinking, well, this is so new for me. I mean, my soon-to-be ex and I were really not getting along. We're not seeing eye to eye. So you know what? I don't know if this is going to work. But I think that you shouldn't rule it out, because once you start to think about, you both still have a common objective, right? You realize this is not the right relationship for you. You want to be able to get to the end goal. So if you're able to think about what are the things that you need to think about, like I said, the main things about, if you have children, it's the child support and the parenting plan, whether there'll be alimony involved and the assets. If you think that you'd be able to reasonably be able, with a neutral person, be able to guide you through those things, and you have that common objective to get through, and both of you really don't want to look back and say, we spent more money on our divorce than we would have for things that we want to do for our future,
Right.
or have for our children. And you can kind of be objective and like-minded about that. It's a really good decision to make. And I think if you also want to do things maybe in a more expeditious way, right? I think that's also would be a good option. Now, if you know that you are working with somebody who just at every turn wants to put an obstacle in place, every time you say something, they're going to say the opposite. If you take 2 steps forward, they're going to make it so you take 8 steps back. And there's just really no ability to reason. There's no common objective that you can be able to get with a person. That's what we call like very high conflict, unreasonable. Then it might not be something that you're going to be able to get to. But I would say in most cases, it's really a good option. And it's even worth kind of trying to get to that point. I have seen in a lot of cases where people start off saying, you know what, I don't think mediation is going to be a good option. People have tried just to go on and do kind of the litigation route. And many times they circle back and say, okay, now we're going to do mediation. So I think it's important if you are considering it to maybe even think about that first and say, wait, do we want to be one of those that kind of went all that and then circled back? So it's something to think about.
Right.
And you can ask a lot of good questions, right? As you're trying to research options, right? You can start with your lawyer to get like some good advice. And then you can kind of have a consult. Mediators do offer a consultation, and you could kind of sit down and ask what would it look like, and you could get information to make an informed decision for yourself. And I recommend, one person can make a call, but it's always really a good idea to have both people involved with the mediator to alleviate maybe having the other person, if they didn't have the outreach with the mediator, maybe even thinking that the mediator then, even though I said the mediator will never, ever take sides, will always be impartial, to alleviate any of that misunderstanding, if there's thinking that the other person talked to the mediator longer.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's great advice. I really hope that the things that you've shared help people feel more confident about exploring mediation. The only thing I can say is that mediation is generally not recommended for domestic violence cases. That's the only time that you really probably should, rely on your lawyer more. We want to say that when we're talking about these, we're not talking about cases where there is domestic violence and things like that, mediation is not necessarily helpful in those situations. So we just want to make sure that viewers understand that. Well, Melissa, thank you so much for sharing with us today. It's been a great discussion. Before we wrap it up, is there any final piece of advice or resource that you would like to share? Where can people, find you on the internet?
Absolutely. Well, I just wanted to tell everybody that you're not alone in this, and it seems like a lot at first, but make sure you reach out, get support. You can find me. My website is melissabethcounseling.com. You can find me at Melissa Beth Counseling Mediation on Instagram and Melissa Beth Counseling on Facebook.
All right. Well, again, thank you for being here. And for everyone watching, don't forget to check out Melissa's links. They will be in the comments section. And it was great having a chat with you today. And I look forward to talking to you in the future. Bye, everyone.
Bye.